Your cat isn't who you think they are. Right now, as we speak, outdoor cats are killing 2.4 billion birds every single year in the United States alone. That's not a typo. Billion with a B. To put that in perspective, that's more birds than there are people on this entire planet, killed every year by cats. But here's what's really messed up. Scientists just discovered that the killing is actually the least damaging thing cats are doing to our cities. Yeah, you heard that right. The billions of dead animals? That's just the tip of the iceberg. New research from 2023 shows that even when cats aren't hunting, just their presence alone causes wildlife to basically shut down for over 24 hours. Birds stop singing, small mammals stop foraging. Entire ecosystems literally freeze in fear. And get this, there's a parasite that cats spread that's making wolves in Yellowstone 46 times more likely to become pack leaders and causing 100% fatality rates in Hawaiian monk seals. We're talking about ecological collapse happening right under our noses, in every single city around the world. Look, I know what you're thinking. My Fluffy would never. But stick with me here because MIT researchers just proved that cats kill 5.6 times more animals than their owners ever see. Your sweet indoor-outdoor cat? They're living a double life you know nothing about. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how 480 million stray cats, plus all our pets, have become the world's most successful invasive predator. You'll see the hidden camera footage scientists are using to expose what cats really do when we're not watching. And most importantly, you'll discover why some countries are now requiring 24-hour cat lockdowns, and why what happens next might determine whether urban wildlife even exists in 20 years. This isn't just another cats versus birds debate. This is about an ecological disaster that's happening right now, in your neighborhood, that almost nobody's talking about. So let's talk about it. How cats are destroying urban ecosystems. Okay, so to understand how cats are literally dismantling our city's ecosystems, we need to start with the numbers. And trust me, these numbers are going to break your brain. Picture this. Every single day in America, cats kill 6.5 million birds. Every single day. By the time you finish watching this video, cats will have killed roughly 45,000 birds. That's like, imagine an entire football stadium full of birds, just gone. And that's just in the time it takes you to watch this. But here's where it gets really wild. Scientists in China just published a study showing cats there kill up to 5.5 billion birds annually. Australia? 1.5 billion native animals every year. We're talking about a global killing machine that operates 24/7, 365 days a year. Now you might be thinking, okay, but my cat barely brings home anything. Yeah, about that. Researchers in Cape Town strapped cameras on cats, kind of like kitty GoPros, and discovered something shocking. Cats only bring home 23% of what they kill. 23%. They eat 28% at the scene like some kind of serial killer and just leave 49% behind. Your cat could be killing 20 animals a month and you'd only see like 4 or 5. But here's the thing that really messed with my head when I learned about it. The killing isn't even the worst part. Scientists in Australia just discovered something called the landscape of fear, and it's exactly as terrifying as it sounds. They set up motion cameras across cities and found that when a cat walks through an area, wildlife activity drops by up to 5 times. And get this, it stays that way for over 24 hours. One cat, one walk through, and that patch of urban forest basically becomes a ghost town for an entire day. Think about what that means. It's not just about the animals that die. It's about the birds that stop singing, stop mating, stop building nests. It's about the small mammals that won't come out to eat so they get weaker, they can't feed their young. The mere smell of a cat, just the smell, triggers stress responses in wildlife that suppresses their immune systems and reduces their reproduction. And then there's something called mesopredator release. Stick with me here because this is where it gets really crazy. In nature, you've got your food chain, right? Big predators eat medium predators eat small stuff. But in cities, we've gotten rid of most of the big predators. The coyotes, the hawks, the foxes. So cats, who are medium predators, have basically taken over. But here's the kicker. We feed them. We give them food, shelter, veterinary care. So their population isn't limited by nature anymore. One study in Southern California found cats living near natural areas were bringing back 840 rodents, 525 birds, and 595 lizards per year. Per cat. That's pressure that no ecosystem evolved to handle. It's like, imagine if sharks didn't need to eat fish to survive because humans were feeding them, but they kept hunting anyway just for fun. And there were 480 million of them. That's basically what we've done with cats. But wait, it gets worse. There's this parasite called Toxoplasma gondii, and cats are the only animal where this parasite can reproduce. When cats poop, they release up to 800 million of these parasite eggs, and these things stay infectious in soil for 2 years. 2 years! This parasite is straight out of a horror movie. It literally changes the behavior of animals it infects. Wolves in Yellowstone that get infected become 46 times more likely to leave their pack and become leaders. Hyenas become bolder and get killed by lions more often. And in Hawaii, When monk seals get infected, it's a 100% death rate. Every single one dies. Oh, and by the way, 1/3 of all humans are infected with this parasite too. Yeah, let that sink in. The economic damage is staggering. We're talking $17 billion a year just from bird deaths in the US. Globally, $22 billion in damages since 1970, and that's probably way underestimated because it doesn't even count mammals, reptiles, or insects. But here's what really gets me, and this is something scientists just figured out. The deadliest cats aren't the hungry ones. They're the well-fed ones. Yeah, you heard that right. Cats that get fed regularly actually hunt more, not less. They're not hunting for food. They're hunting because it's literally hardwired into their brains. It's like a video game to them, except the NPCs are real animals that don't respawn. Urban cats are particularly devastating because they hunt exactly where we're trying to protect wildlife. You know those green spaces cities spend millions creating? Those urban forests and parks that are supposed to be refuges for wildlife? Cats penetrate an average of 65 meters into these areas, with some going over 300 meters deep. They're literally undermining every conservation effort cities make. And the timing couldn't be worse. Cities are becoming more and more important for biodiversity because, ironically, they sometimes have more wildlife than farmland now. Urban areas are becoming these accidental arcs for species that can't survive elsewhere, and we're letting cats systematically dismantle them. One researcher put it this way: "It's like we're trying to save water during a drought while someone's running around with a sledgehammer breaking all the pipes." That's what cats are doing to urban ecosystems. They're not just removing pieces, they're breaking the entire system. The really frustrating part? This is completely preventable. This isn't climate change where we need to restructure our entire civilization. This isn't habitat loss where we need to stop development. This is literally just about keeping cats indoors or contained. That's it. That's all it would take. But instead, we've created the perfect storm, an invasive predator that we protect, feed, and heal, releasing them into ecosystems that are already hanging by a thread, where they kill not for survival, but for entertainment, spreading disease and fear that cascades through entire food webs. And the craziest part? Most people have no idea this is even happening. We see our cute, fluffy friends and cannot reconcile that with the ecological apocalypse happening in our backyards. But the science is crystal clear, the evidence is overwhelming, and the consequences are accelerating. Our city's wildlife is disappearing, and cats are the smoking gun we're refusing to look at. Cats trigger ecosystem collapse through invisible mechanisms. Okay, so we've talked about the killing, but here's where things get genuinely terrifying. The billions of dead animals. That's actually just the visible part of the disaster. What scientists discovered in 2023 is going to completely change how you think about this problem. Researchers in Australia set up this massive experiment with motion sensor cameras all across urban areas. They wanted to see what happens when cats show up. And what they found was, honestly, it's like something out of a psychological thriller. When a cat walks through an area, just walks through, doesn't even hunt anything, wildlife activity drops by up to 5 times. 5 times. But here's the really messed up part. The effect lasts for over 24 hours. One cat, one casual stroll, and that patch of habitat basically becomes a dead zone for an entire day. They're calling it the landscape of fear. And once you understand it, you can never look at outdoor cats the same way again. Seed prey animals have evolved these incredibly sophisticated danger detection systems. They can smell cat urine from hundreds of feet away. They can detect pheromones that cats release from their paw pads. Even shed cat hair triggers alarm responses. And when they detect any of these signals, they basically shut down. Birds stop singing. Think about that for a second. Birdsong isn't just pretty noise. It's how they attract mates, defend territory, communicate about food sources. When cats are around, all of that stops. One study found that birds reduce their singing by 95% when they detect cat presence. That means they're not mating, not reproducing, not maintaining their territories. Small mammals? They stop foraging. They'll literally choose to slowly starve rather than risk coming out when they smell cat. Researchers found that rodents reduce their activity by 70% for up to 30 hours after detecting cat scent. They're hiding in their burrows, burning through their energy reserves, getting weaker. But here's where it gets really dark. This chronic fear causes something called stress-induced immunosuppression. Basically, when animals are constantly terrified, their immune systems crash. They become vulnerable to diseases they could normally fight off. Their wounds don't heal properly. Parasites that their bodies would usually control start taking over. Pregnant animals exposed to this constant stress have smaller litters, more stillbirths, and weaker offspring. One study on urban rabbits found that those living in areas with high cat density had 40% fewer successful pregnancies. Not because cats were killing pregnant rabbits, but just because the stress of cats being around was causing miscarriages. And then there's something called mesopredator release that's absolutely destroying urban food webs. Let me break this down because it's wild. In a healthy ecosystem, you've got apex predators. Think coyotes, hawks, foxes. They keep medium-sized predators like cats in check. But in cities, we've eliminated most apex predators. So cats have become what ecologists call subsidized mesopredators. We feed them, we shelter them, we give them medical care. Their population isn't limited by food availability or predation anymore. Research from Southern California is mind-blowing. They tracked cats living near urban nature reserves and found each cat was killing 840 rodents, 525 birds, and 595 lizards per year. But here's the thing. Because we're feeding these cats, their population density is 10 to 100 times higher than any natural predator could ever be. It's like, imagine if wolves didn't need to eat to survive but kept hunting anyway, and there were 100 times more wolves than nature intended. That's what we've done with cats. This creates something called a trophic cascade, and it's basically ecosystem collapse in slow motion. Here's how it works. Cats kill seed-eating birds. Without those birds, certain plants can't spread their seeds. Without those plants, specific insects lose their food source. Without those insects, other birds that eat those insects disappear. It's this domino effect that ripples through the entire ecosystem. One study tracked this cascade in an urban park in Florida. Cats reduced bird populations by 50%. Those birds normally ate caterpillars. Without the birds, caterpillar populations exploded by 300%. The caterpillars devastated the local plant life. The damaged plants couldn't support butterfly populations. The lack of butterflies affected pollination of other plants. Within 3 years, the entire park ecosystem had fundamentally changed, all because of cats. But wait, there's an even freakier mechanism at work here. Cats are what scientists call surplus killers. Unlike native predators that kill what they need to survive, cats kill everything they can catch. A fox might kill one rabbit and eat it. A cat will kill 5 rabbits, eat part of one, and leave 4 rotting. This surplus killing breaks a fundamental rule of predator-prey relationships. Normally, when prey becomes scarce, predators have fewer babies or starve, allowing prey to recover. But cats don't follow this rule because we feed them. They can drive prey to local extinction and just keep going. Scientists documented this in a horrifying study in Australia. They monitored a small population of endangered bandicoots in an urban reserve. There were about 50 bandicoots. Over 2 years, cats killed every single one. But the cat population didn't decline at all because humans were feeding them. The cats just switched to hunting other species. Here's another invisible killer, what researchers call sublethal effects. These are animals that survive cat attacks but are permanently damaged. A bird that escapes with a damaged wing can't migrate properly. A lizard that loses its tail to a cat can't store enough fat to survive winter. A small mammal with cat-inflicted injuries can't compete for mates. One study found that for every animal killed by cats, another 2 to 3 animals suffer sublethal injuries that affect their survival. So those 2.4 billion dead birds, there are probably another 5 billion with injuries that will impact their ability to survive and reproduce. And then there's the weirdest effect of all, behavioral contagion. When prey animals see other prey acting fearful, they become fearful too, even if they haven't detected a cat themselves. It's like a panic that spreads through the entire urban wildlife community. Researchers have documented this fear spreading up to 500 meters from where a cat actually is. This creates what scientists call virtual predation. Cats don't even need to be present to suppress wildlife activity. Just the possibility that a cat might show up is enough to fundamentally alter how urban ecosystems function. One ecologist put it perfectly. We used to think cats were just removing pieces from the ecosystem, like pulling blocks from a Jenga tower. But now we know they're actually shaking the entire table. The temporal effects are devastating too. Cats are active when many urban animals are most vulnerable. They hunt during dawn and dusk when birds are feeding. They're active at night when small mammals emerge. They patrol during spring when everything is breeding and raising young. There's literally no safe time for urban wildlife. But here's the absolute worst part. These effects are cumulative and accelerating. Every cat adds to the landscape of fear. Every kill removes prey that would have reproduced. Every failed breeding attempt due to stress means fewer animals next year. It's a downward spiral that's picking up speed. Urban wildlife is essentially experiencing psychological warfare on top of actual warfare. They're not just being killed, they're being terrorized into dysfunction. They can't eat properly, can't breed successfully, can't raise their young effectively. Their immune systems are compromised, their behavior is disrupted, their social structures are collapsing. And remember, this is happening in every city, in every country, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The killing is horrible, but it's these invisible mechanisms that are truly dismantling urban ecosystems from the inside out. We're not just losing individual animals, we're losing the complex web of relationships that make ecosystems work. And once those connections are broken, putting them back together is like trying to unbake a cake. The damage isn't just happening, it's compounding, accelerating, and pushing urban ecosystems toward a tipping point from which they may never recover. The predation crisis reaches biblical proportions. All right, I need you to sit down for this one because the numbers I'm about to share with you are so insane, your brain is literally going to reject them as impossible. But they're real, they're verified, and they're happening right now. In the United States alone, outdoor cats kill 2.4 billion birds every single year. Let me say that again, 2.4 billion birds. That's more birds than there are people in China and India combined. Gone. Every year. Just in America. But wait, it gets crazier. Those same cats also kill 12.3 billion mammals annually. 12.3 billion. That's like, imagine if cats killed every human on Earth, and then did it again just for fun. That's the scale we're talking about here. And before you think, well, that's probably mostly mice and rats, right? Wrong. We're talking about rabbits, squirrels, chipmunks, voles, shrews. Basically anything that moves and is smaller than a cat is fair game. Now, scientists used to think these numbers were exaggerated, like surely it can't be that bad, right? So between 2020 and 2024, they did something brilliant. They strapped tiny cameras on cats, basically turned them into little documentary filmmakers of their own murder sprees. And what they found was actually worse than the estimates. Here's what blew my mind. Individual cats are basically serial killers with different signatures. Some house cats never hunt at all. They're like the pacifists of the cat world. But feral cats? They average over 200 kills per year. And the super hunters? Scientists have documented individual cats killing over 1,000 animals in a single year. That's almost 3 animals every single day. One study in Australia followed this one feral cat. They called him Assassin. And this single cat killed 100 animals in 1 year. Imagine being personally responsible for the death of 3 creatures every single day of your life. That's not a pet, that's a Terminator. But here's where the data gets really interesting. Scientists in Cape Town did this massive study where they gave cats camera collars, and they discovered something that completely changed how we understand this problem. Cats only bring home 23% of their kills. 23%. Think about what that means. If your outdoor cat brings you 1 dead bird a month, they're actually killing 4. If they bring you 5 dead mice a year, they've actually killed 22. It's like an iceberg. We're only seeing this tiny fraction of the actual carnage. They eat 28% of their kills on the spot, like some kind of field snack. And here's the really twisted part. They just abandon 49% of what they kill. They're not even eating it. They kill it, maybe play with it a bit, and then just walk away. It's recreational murder. China just released their numbers, and honestly, I had to read them 3 times because I thought there was a translation error. Chinese cats kill up to 4.95 billion invertebrates, 4.31 billion reptiles, and 5.52 billion birds every year. We're talking about more deaths than there are stars visible in the night sky. In Australia, and this is a country that takes data seriously, cats kill 1.5 billion native animals annually. And these aren't invasive species they're killing. These are animals that evolved in Australia for millions of years, that are found nowhere else on Earth, and cats are just erasing them. The economic impact is staggering. Economists at the University of Nebraska sat down and calculated the value of all these dead birds, not even counting mammals or reptiles, just birds. They looked at what people spend on bird watching, what birds contribute to pest control, their role in pollination, seed dispersal, all of it. The number? $17 billion every single year, just in the US. Globally, between 1970 and 2017, cats have caused $22 billion in cumulative damage. And the researchers who calculated this said it's probably a massive underestimate because they couldn't even calculate the value of all the mammals, reptiles, and insects being killed. But here's what really puts this in perspective. You know what the leading human-caused source of bird deaths is after cats? Window collisions. Windows kill about 600 million birds a year. Cats kill 4 times that. Cars, 200 million. Cats kill 12 times more. Wind turbines that everyone freaks out about? Actually, let me put it this way. Cats kill more birds than windows. Cars, power lines, wind turbines, airplanes, and oil spills combined. And then they kill that same number again. 3 more times. The variety of what they're killing is mind-blowing, too. A study from 2023 documented cats preying on 2,084 different species, 2,000 different types of animals. That includes 981 bird species, 463 reptile species, and 431 mammal species. And out of all these, 347 species, that's 16.5%, are species of conservation concern. We're talking about endangered and threatened animals here. One researcher described it like this. If aliens invaded Earth and killed 2.4 billion birds and 12.3 billion mammals every year, it would be considered an extinction-level event. But because it's cute, fluffy cats doing it, we just accept it? And here's the kicker. These numbers are probably underestimates. Why? Because they don't include cats killing adult birds at their nests. They don't fully account for island populations where cats are even more devastating, and they don't include the animals that die later from injuries or stress caused by cat attacks. Scientists are literally running out of superlatives to describe this. One paper called it an ecological apocalypse in real time. Another described it as the single greatest source of anthropogenic mortality for birds and mammals in the contiguous United States. But perhaps the most chilling quote came from Dr. Pete Mara, who led the Smithsonian study. We're witnessing one of the world's worst invasive species problems, but because cats are pets, we're in complete denial about it. The math is simple and horrifying. There are about 480 million stray cats globally, plus another 350 million owned cats. Even if only half of them hunt, and even if they only kill one animal per week, that's still 21 billion deaths per year. But the reality is much, much worse than that conservative estimate. We're not talking about a problem here. We're talking about an extinction machine that we've built, that we maintain, that we protect, and that operates at a scale that defies comprehension. Every 3 seconds somewhere in the world, a cat kills a native animal. By the time I finish this sentence, 15 animals are dead. And the worst part? This is accelerating. Cat populations are growing, urban sprawl is pushing them into more wildlife habitat, and climate change is making prey species more vulnerable. We're not heading toward a crisis. We're in the middle of one. This isn't nature. This isn't the circle of life. This is a human-created catastrophe that's unfolding in real time, measured in billions of deaths per year, and until we acknowledge the true scale of what's happening, we can't even begin to fix it. Disease transmission creates invisible wildlife apocalypse. All right, we need to talk about something that might literally keep you up at night. Because while we've been focused on cats killing things with their claws and teeth, they've been waging biological warfare that makes everything else look like child's play. There's this parasite called Toxoplasma gondii, and I need you to understand, this isn't some minor infection. This is a mind-controlling parasite straight out of science fiction, and cats are the only animal on Earth where it can complete its life cycle. Let that sink in. The only one. Here's how insane this is. When a cat gets infected with Toxoplasma for the first time, it sheds between 3 million and 800 million parasite eggs in its poop. 800 million. These eggs are basically indestructible. They survive in soil and water for over 24 months, 2 years. Rain doesn't kill them. Freezing doesn't kill them. They just sit there, waiting. And get this, 1/3 of all humans on Earth are infected with this parasite right now. 1 out of every 3 people watching this video has Toxoplasma in their brain. But here's where it gets absolutely terrifying for wildlife. In Hawaii, monk seals are dying from this parasite, and the death rate is 100%. Let me repeat that. 100% fatality rate. Every single monk seal that gets infected dies, and there are only 380 of these seals left in the main Hawaiian Islands. Scientists calculated that each female seal that dies from Toxoplasma eliminates roughly 100 potential future seals across generations. This parasite isn't just killing individuals, it's erasing entire future bloodlines. But the way this parasite works is what's truly nightmarish. It literally hijacks brains. Scientists studying wolves in Yellowstone discovered that infected wolves are 11 times more likely to leave their pack and 46 times more likely to become pack leaders. The parasite is literally changing their personality, making them more aggressive, more risk-taking. In hyenas, infected individuals become bolder around lions, their natural predator. They're basically being mind-controlled into suicide. The parasite wants them to die and be eaten because that's how it spreads to new hosts. It's turning wildlife into zombies, and I'm not even exaggerating. But Toxoplasma is just the beginning of this biological nightmare. Cats transmit rabies at 2.2 to 4.4 times higher rates than dogs. Think about that. We worry about rabid dogs, but cats are actually way more likely to give you rabies. Over 6,000 Americans need rabies post-exposure prophylaxis every year just from cat encounters, and that treatment costs over $1,000 per person. Here's something that'll make your skin crawl. Bartonella henselae, also known as cat scratch disease. About 33.6% of feral cats carry this bacteria. When they scratch or bite wildlife, or humans, they transmit it. In wildlife, it causes fever, seizures, and heart infections. Scientists studying urban possums found that 71% of them had Bartonella antibodies, meaning they'd been infected by cats at some point. Cats also spread antibiotic-resistant MRSA, various parasitic worms, feline leukemia virus, and feline immunodeficiency virus. They're basically walking biological weapons platforms, and they're depositing these pathogens everywhere they go. Let me paint you a picture of how this works in real life. A cat poops in a garden. Those 800 million Toxoplasma eggs get into the soil. Rain washes them into storm drains, which flow into streams and rivers. The parasites infect fish, frogs, and aquatic insects. Birds eat the infected insects. Mammals drink the contaminated water. The infection spreads through the entire food web like a viral video, except instead of views, we're talking about brain parasites. In California, sea otters are dying from Toxoplasma, and scientists were confused. How are marine animals getting infected by a cat parasite? Turns out rainfall washes billions of these eggs from cat feces into the ocean. They've found Toxoplasma in dolphins, seals, whales, animals that never come anywhere near a cat. The ocean itself is contaminated with cat parasites. The behavioral changes this parasite causes are absolutely insane. Infected mice lose their fear of cats. They're actually attracted to cat urine. Infected chimps lose their fear of leopards. It's literally programming prey animals to get themselves killed. One scientist called it the most diabolical manipulation of behavior ever discovered in nature. But here's what really shows how catastrophic this is. The Hawaiian crow, or alala, went extinct in the wild partly because of Toxoplasma. Scientists tried to reintroduce them. They released 11 birds. 7 died from toxoplasmosis. 7 out of 11. The reintroduction failed because of a cat parasite. An entire species recovery was sabotaged by cat poop. The economic cost is staggering. Treatment for toxoplasmosis in humans costs the U.S. healthcare system over $3 billion annually. Wildlife rehabilitation centers spend millions trying to save infected animals, most of which die anyway. The cost of failed reintroduction programs due to disease runs into tens of millions. And it's getting worse. Climate change is making this catastrophe accelerate. Warmer temperatures mean parasites survive longer in the environment. More rainfall means more parasites washing into water systems. Stressed wildlife with compromised immune systems are more vulnerable to infection. Here's a mind-blowing fact. Scientists studying urban watersheds found that a single outdoor cat's annual fecal output can contaminate up to 11.8 million gallons of water with Toxoplasma. That's enough contaminated water to fill 18 Olympic swimming pools, from one cat, in 1 year. The disease spread isn't random either. It follows patterns that maximize destruction. Cats preferentially defecate in loose soil and sand, exactly where ground-nesting birds lay eggs and where small mammals burrow. They're literally poisoning nurseries and homes with biological weapons. Island ecosystems are experiencing full-blown biological apocalypses. In New Zealand, native birds that evolved without mammalian predators have no immunity to cat diseases. Entire populations can be wiped out by a single infected cat. It's like introducing smallpox to populations with no immunity, except it's happening to thousands of species simultaneously. But here's the part that genuinely makes me angry. This is completely preventable. Indoor cats don't spread these diseases to wildlife. It's that simple. Every outdoor cat is a potential patient zero for wildlife epidemics. Every owner who lets their cat roam is participating in biological warfare against native species. Scientists have started calling cats pathogen pollution sources. They're not just animals anymore, they're contamination vectors. One researcher said, if a factory was releasing this many pathogens into the environment, it would be shut down immediately. But because it's cats, we just accept it. The multiplier effect is horrifying. One infected cat can contaminate an area that affects thousands of animals. Those infected animals can spread it to others. Secondary infections weaken populations, making them vulnerable to other diseases. It's a cascade of biological destruction that's invisible to the naked eye but devastating to ecosystems. And remember that 480 million stray cats globally? Each one is a potential disease factory. Even if only 10% are actively shedding parasites at any time, that's 48 million cats contaminating the environment right now, at this very moment. The scale is incomprehensible. Wildlife rehabilitation centers are seeing the carnage firsthand. They report that disease from cats is now one of the leading causes of admission, and most infected animals can't be saved. One rehabilitator in California said, "We used to treat injuries. Now we're basically running a hospice for animals dying from cat diseases." The research is unequivocal. Cats are causing a pandemic in wildlife populations that's invisible to most people but catastrophic in scale. Every day this continues, more species edge toward extinction, not from predation, but from microscopic killers spread by what we call pets. This isn't just an ecological crisis. It's a biological apocalypse happening in slow motion, measured not in bodies but in infected brains, contaminated watersheds, and poisoned soil. And the worst part? We know exactly how to stop it, keep cats indoors, but we're choosing not to. We're literally choosing cat convenience over preventing wildlife pandemics. And that choice is creating a biological disaster that may be impossible to reverse. 63. Extinctions and counting. I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine if I told you that one single type of animal has driven 63 species to complete extinction. Not endangered, not threatened, gone forever. Erased from existence, never coming back. That's what cats have done, and the number is still climbing. 63 documented extinctions. And scientists say that's probably a massive undercount because we don't even know all the species that disappeared before we could document them. These aren't just numbers. These are entire branches of evolution that have been cut off. Millions of years of evolution, ended by house cats. Let me tell you about the Lyell's wren. This little bird lived on Stevens Island in New Zealand. The entire species, every single individual, was wiped out by one cat. One lighthouse keeper's pet cat named Tibbles killed every Lyell's wren on Earth. The species was discovered and driven extinct in the same year. We literally met them and lost them because of a single cat. But that's just one story. In Australia, cats have driven over 20 mammal species to extinction since European settlement. 20. The pig-footed bandicoot, gone. The desert bandicoot, gone. The broad-faced potoru, gone. These weren't weak species that were already failing. These were animals that survived in Australia for millions of years, through ice ages, through droughts, through everything nature threw at them. Then cats showed up, and within 200 years, they're extinct. Here's what makes island extinctions particularly heartbreaking. Island species often evolve without predators, so they lose their fear responses. They don't run from danger. Some birds even lose the ability to fly. When cats arrive, it's not hunting, it's just slaughter. The Guadalupe storm petrel, extinct. The Guadalupe caracara, Extinct. The Socorro dove? Extinct in the wild. Scientists documented cats preying on 248 species across just 40 surveyed islands. On some islands, cats have eliminated over 70% of native bird species. 70%. But here's the story that really gets me. The Hawaiian crow, the alala, is extinct in the wild. Scientists tried to save them. They bred them in captivity, raised them carefully, and released 11 birds back into the wild. 7 died from toxoplasmosis, the cat parasite. 4 were killed by hawks that had become unusually aggressive because the ecosystem was so out of balance from cats killing everything else. The reintroduction failed completely. Think about that. We spent millions of dollars, decades of research, countless hours of work, and cats destroyed it all. The alala's wild song has been silenced forever, and cats are the reason why. In Australia right now, 124 species are on the brink because of cats. The greater bilby has lost 80% of its range. The numbat is down to fewer than 1,000 individuals. The night parrot, thought extinct for decades, was rediscovered only to find cats are its main threat. These species are holding on by a thread, and cats are the scissors. But here's a success story that proves this is preventable. In the Dryandra woodland in Western Australia, they removed cats completely. Within 3 years, just 3 years, numbat populations tripled. Tripled! That's how fast ecosystems can recover when we remove cats. But it also shows how severely cats suppress wildlife populations. The economic value of these extinctions is impossible to calculate. The Christmas Island forest skink went extinct in 2014. Scientists literally watched the last one die in captivity, while cats hunted the remaining wild population to extinction. How do you put a price on the last member of a species that existed for millions of years? Current extinction rates are accelerating. The critically endangered Hawaiian petrel faces 11% annual nest predation from cats. With only 4,000 breeding pairs left, every cat kill pushes them closer to extinction. The Hawaiian monk seal, 15 confirmed deaths from toxoplasmosis, with only 380 seals remaining. That's 4% of the population killed by cat disease. Here's what's truly infuriating. We know exactly which species are next. Scientists have lists. The black-footed rock wallaby in Australia, fewer than 100 left, primary threat, cats. The kangaroo island dunnart, fewer than 500 left after the 2020 fires, main threat, cats. The eastern quoll, extinct on mainland Australia because of cats, barely hanging on in Tasmania. A 2023 global assessment found cats threatening 347 species of conservation concern. That's 16.5% of everything cats prey on. We're not talking about common animals here. These are species already struggling, and cats are pushing them over the edge. The pattern is always the same. A species declines from habitat loss or climate change, they become restricted to small areas, then cats move in for the kill. It's like kicking someone when they're already down. Species that might have recovered, that might have adapted, are instead driven extinct by cats. But here's what really shows the scale of this crisis. Cats don't just cause direct extinctions, they cause what scientists call functional extinctions. This is when a species still exists, but in such small numbers they can't fulfill their ecological role anymore. Take the eastern barred bandicoot. Technically not extinct, but the wild population got down to 150 individuals, all in one location. They couldn't spread seeds effectively anymore. They couldn't control insect populations. They were ecologically irrelevant. That's functional extinction, and cats cause it constantly. The rate of extinction is accelerating. In the 1800s, cats caused an extinction every few years. In the 1900s, it was yearly. Now, scientists estimate cats contribute to approximately 1 extinction per year globally, and that's just the ones we know about. How many insects, reptiles, and small mammals disappear without us even noticing? Island nations are experiencing complete ecological collapse. In New Zealand, cats threaten 36% of native bird species. In Japan, the Okinawa rail is down to 1,500 individuals because of cats. The Galapagos Islands, Darwin's laboratory of evolution, has endemic species being picked off by cats one by one. Here's a gut punch. The animals cats are driving extinct are often the most unique ones. Island species that exist nowhere else. Ancient lineages that represent entire branches of the evolutionary tree. When the Christmas Island forest skink went extinct, we lost the last member of an entire genus. Not just a species, an entire genus gone because of cats. Conservation biologists have a term, extinction debt. These are species that are functionally doomed but haven't died out yet. They're the walking dead of the animal kingdom. Based on current cat predation rates and population trends, scientists estimate we have an extinction debt of at least 40 more species that will disappear in the next 20 years. They're already gone. They just don't know it yet. And here's the most frustrating part. We're still introducing cats to new islands. Remote islands that have been cat-free are getting cats from visiting boats, from misguided relocations, from people who think they're helping by dumping unwanted cats somewhere natural. Every new introduction is potentially another extinction event. The researchers who document these extinctions are watching in real time as species disappear. One biologist studying the critically endangered Key Largo wood rat said, "I'm basically writing an obituary. We know cats will drive them extinct. We're just documenting the process." But perhaps the most tragic part is that these extinctions are silent. When the last Lyle's wren died, no one noticed. When the last pig-footed bandicoot disappeared, there was no announcement. These species just vanished. And with them went their songs, their behaviors, their role in the ecosystem, their potential contributions to science and medicine. We're living through the 6th mass extinction, and cats are one of the primary drivers. They're not the only cause, but they're the most preventable one. Every species cats drive extinct is a failure of our responsibility as pet owners. Every extinction is preventable by simply keeping cats indoors. 63 extinctions and counting. Each one a universe of evolution lost forever. And unless we act now, that number will keep climbing until the silence of extinction drowns out the songs of nature. The question isn't whether cats will cause more extinctions. It's how many more we're willing to accept before we finally say enough. Urban landscapes become killing fields. Picture your city from above. See those green patches, the parks, the nature reserves, those little strips of forest? We spend millions creating these urban oases for wildlife. Well, I've got news for you. We've turned them into death traps, and cats are the reason why. Scientists just discovered something that completely flips everything we thought we knew about urban conservation. Those cats living on the edge of natural areas. They call them boundary cats. They're not like your average neighborhood tabby. These cats are specialized killers, and the data is absolutely shocking. Boundary cats maintain territories that are 70% larger than regular suburban cats, 3.42 hectares versus 2.01 hectares. But here's the kicker. They kill at more than double the rate. While a suburban cat averages 3.35 prey per year, boundary cats are taking down 7.91 animals annually. And remember, that's just what we can document. The real number is probably 5 times higher. These cats are penetrating an average of 65 meters into protected natural areas. 65 meters. But some cats? They're going 300 meters deep into these reserves. That's 3 football fields into what's supposed to be protected habitat. They're turning the edges of every urban forest into a kill zone. Researchers in Washington, D.C. just released this mind-blowing study. They found that to actually protect native species in urban forests, you need a 250-meter buffer zone. 250 meters. That means the first 250 meters of every urban park is basically a dead zone for native wildlife. In most cities, that's the entire park. But here's what really messed with my head when I learned it. You know how people put out food for stray cats, thinking they're helping? Those feeding stations are creating what scientists call ecological traps. Wildlife is attracted to these urban green spaces thinking they're safe, but the artificial food sources create super high densities of cats. It's like luring victims into a killing field. One study tracked this in real time. A well-meaning person set up a cat feeding station near an urban wetland that was home to endangered water voles. Within 6 months, the vole population crashed by 90%. 90%! The feeding station had attracted 15 cats to an area that might naturally support one. The voles didn't stand a chance. Here's the truly perverse part. The best-fed cats hunt the most. I know that sounds backwards, but it's true. Researchers found that cats getting regular meals actually hunt more than hungry cats. Why? Because well-fed cats have energy to burn. They're not hunting for food. They're hunting for fun. They're basically treating our urban wildlife like a video game. The timing of cat activity makes everything worse. Cats are crepuscular. That means they're most active at dawn and dusk. Guess when urban wildlife is most active? Dawn and dusk. Why? Because that's when humans aren't around. So the wildlife comes out thinking they're safe from people and walks straight into peak cat hunting time. But it gets worse. Cats are active for 20 hours out of every 24. The only time they're consistently inactive? Between 6 and 8 a.m. That's it. 2 hours. Urban wildlife gets a 2-hour break from terror each day. The rest of the time, they're either being hunted or living in fear of being hunted. Let me tell you about this study from Cape Town that will blow your mind. They put cameras on cats living near Table Mountain National Park. These cats were crossing roads, highways, even rivers to hunt in the park. One cat, a well-fed pet named Smokey, was documented traveling 1.2 kilometers from his home to hunt endangered birds in the park. Every night, he'd make this journey. His owners had no idea. Urban geography makes this catastrophe worse. Cities create what ecologists call edge effects. Instead of one continuous forest, we have dozens of small patches. Every patch has an edge, and every edge is vulnerable to cats. A single large forest might have 10 kilometers of edge, but break it into 20 small parks, and suddenly you have 50 kilometers of edge, 5 times more killing zone. The infrastructure we build actually helps cats hunt. Fences become highways for cats, but barriers for prey. Storm drains provide shelter and hunting grounds. Manicured lawns offer perfect stalking terrain. We've literally designed our cities to be optimal hunting grounds for cats. Here's something that'll make you rethink every urban park. Researchers found that cat density in urban areas is 100 times higher than any native predator. 100 times. In natural areas, you might have 1 fox per square kilometer. In cities, we have 100 cats in the same space. No ecosystem can handle that level of predation. The seasonal patterns are devastating. Spring, when everything is breeding and raising babies. That's peak hunting season for cats. Ground nesting birds, baby rabbits, fledgling songbirds, they're all vulnerable at the exact time when cats are most active. One study found that 79% of bird nest failures in urban parks were due to cat predation. But here's what really shows how bad this is. Cats are hunting exactly where we're trying to protect wildlife. Cities spend millions creating wildlife corridors, these green connections between parks. Guess what? Cats use these corridors too, but as hunting highways. They're literally following the same paths we designed for wildlife protection and turning them into killing routes. The concentration effect is mind-boggling. Urban parks are often the only green space for miles, so all the local wildlife concentrates there. Then all the local cats concentrate there too. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket and then filling that basket with predators. One researcher called it ecological compression with predator amplification. Basically, we're squeezing wildlife and predators into the same small spaces and wondering why there's carnage. Light pollution makes it worse. Streetlights allow cats to hunt more effectively at night while disrupting wildlife behavior patterns. Motion sensor lights that people install for security? They're basically spotlights that help cats locate prey. We're literally illuminating targets for them. Here's a heartbreaking example from San Francisco. They spent $15 million restoring a wetland habitat for the endangered salt marsh harvest mouse. Within 2 years of completion, cameras documented 47 different cats hunting in the restored area. The mouse population, instead of recovering, declined by 60%. $15 million, and cats destroyed it. The fragmentation is accelerating. As cities grow, we're creating more edges, more fragments, more killing zones. Every new development that promises to preserve green space is actually creating new hunting grounds for cats. We're not saving nature, we're serving it up on a platter. Urban heat islands affect this too. Warmer urban temperatures mean longer breeding seasons for cats. While native wildlife still follows natural cycles, cats are breeding year-round in cities, creating ever-growing armies of hunters. Some urban areas now have 3 generations of kittens per year instead of the natural 1 or 2. Here's the bottom line. We've created an ecological paradox. Urban green spaces are supposed to be refuges for wildlife in an increasingly developed world. Instead, we've turned them into killing fields, where predator density exceeds anything in nature, where every edge is a death trap, where feeding stations become execution grounds. A conservation biologist in Seattle put it perfectly. We spend millions creating urban habitats for wildlife, then we let millions of cats destroy them. It's like building a hospital and then filling it with disease. The infrastructure for conservation is there, but we're sabotaging it with cats. The solution is obvious but politically explosive. Every study concludes the same thing. Cats and urban wildlife conservation are fundamentally incompatible. You can have free-roaming cats, or you can have urban biodiversity. You cannot have both. The science is clear, the evidence is overwhelming, and every day we delay, more of our urban wildlife disappears. Our cities could be arks for biodiversity in an increasingly developed world. Instead, we've turned them into killing fields where the most successful predator in Earth's history hunts with impunity. And until we face this reality, every dollar spent on urban conservation is just subsidizing slaughter. Solutions face scientific scrutiny and cultural resistance. All right, so we know cats are destroying ecosystems. The question everyone asks is, what do we do about it? Well, here's where things get messy, controversial, and honestly, kind of depressing. Because we have solutions. They work. We just can't agree on which ones to use. Let's start with a big one, trap, neuter, return, or TNR. This is where volunteers trap feral cats, get them sterilized, then release them back where they came from. Cat advocates swear by it. Wildlife conservationists mostly hate it. And the science? Well, the science is complicated. Here's what nobody wants to admit. TNR can work, but only under conditions so specific it's almost impossible to achieve. The University of Central Florida ran a program for 28 years, and achieved an 85% population reduction. Sydney had a program that got 78% reduction over 9 years. Sounds great, right? But here's the catch. To make TNR work, you need to sterilize over 75% of the cats every single year. Not once, every year. You need to prevent people from dumping new cats. You need consistent funding, dedicated volunteers, and perfect execution. Miss any of these? The program fails. Let me give you the brutal math. Professional TNR costs over $100 per cat. That includes trapping, surgery, vaccines, and monitoring. The US has between 30 and 80 million feral cats. Let's use the low number. That's $3 billion just for the initial round. And remember, you have to keep doing it, forever, because new cats keep showing up. Currently, TNR programs in the US manage about 2% of the feral cat population. 2%. At that rate, it would take 500 years to address the problem, assuming cat populations don't grow. Spoiler alert, they're growing. The American Bird Conservancy analyzed dozens of TNR programs and found something disturbing. Many colonies actually increased in size. Why? Because feeding stations attract more cats. People dump unwanted pets at colonies thinking they're helping. The vacuum effect means new cats move into territories when others die. It's like trying to empty the ocean with a bucket while someone else runs a fire hose into it. But here's what really makes scientists tear their hair out. Even successful TNR programs leave cats on the landscape. A neutered cat still hunts. It still spreads disease. It still creates that landscape of fear we talked about. From a wildlife perspective, a sterile cat killing birds for 10 years isn't better than a fertile cat killing birds for 3 years. One study that TNR advocates don't like to talk about. Researchers compared wildlife populations in areas with TNR colonies versus areas without cats. Even with reduced cat numbers, the TNR areas had 50% fewer birds and 70% fewer small mammals. The cats were still devastating wildlife, just slightly slower. Now let's talk about containment, basically, cat curfews and mandatory indoor policies. This is where things get really interesting and really controversial. The Australian Capital Territory has the world's strictest cat containment laws. All cats must be contained 24/7, no exceptions. They also require mandatory desexing by 3 months old, mandatory microchipping, and mandatory registration. The results? Measurable wildlife recovery in 16 suburbs within just 3 years. But when they tried to implement similar rules in New Zealand, it caused massive backlash. 67% of cat owners said they'd continue letting cats roam, despite understanding the wildlife impacts. People literally said they'd rather break the law than keep their cats inside. One survey respondent wrote, "My cat's freedom is more important than a few birds." The cultural resistance is insane. In the US, when cities try to implement cat licensing, not even containment, just basic licensing like we do for dogs, people lose their minds. Lawrence, Kansas tried to require cat licensing. The city council received death threats, over asking people to register their cats. Here's the economic reality nobody wants to face. A comprehensive cat management program for a mid-sized city costs about $2 million per year. That includes enforcement, sheltering, TNR programs, and education. But some places are making it work. Miami Beach created a city-supported program that achieved 700-plus adoptions and major population reductions. How? They threw money at it, real money. They hired full-time staff, partnered with veterinarians, and ran it like an actual municipal service, not a volunteer hobby. The education gap is massive. A study in India found that 72% of people had never even heard of TNR. In the US, most people think well-fed cats don't hunt. We know that's completely wrong. In Europe, many people believe cats are part of the natural environment, despite cats being introduced by humans. Religious and cultural factors make everything more complicated. In India, Buddhist and Jain principles about protecting all life mean only 25.6% of people support any form of lethal control, even for feral cats destroying endangered species. In Islamic countries, cats have special religious status. In Italy, cats are considered part of the biocultural heritage, and killing feral cats is illegal. Here's what's really frustrating. We know what works. Australia proves it. Where they've removed cats completely, wildlife recovers immediately. The Dryandra woodland saw numbat populations triple in 3 years. Islands that eliminated cats saw seabird populations explode. It's not complicated. Remove cats, save wildlife. But complete removal is politically impossible in most places. So we get these half measures that don't really solve anything. It's like trying to stop a flood with a screen door. We know it won't work, but it makes people feel like they're doing something. The technology exists for better solutions. GPS fence collars that keep cats in yards. Catio enclosures that give cats outdoor access without wildlife access. Breed-specific legislation like we use for dogs. But implementation? Almost zero. The products exist. The political will doesn't. Some cities are trying innovative approaches. In Belgium, they're requiring all cats to be sterilized by 5 months old. Period, no exceptions. In 2 years, shelter intake dropped by 30%. It's working, but it required actual laws with actual enforcement, not voluntary compliance. The volunteer burnout in TNR programs is brutal. The average TNR volunteer lasts 18 months before quitting. They're dealing with hostile cats, hostile people, lack of resources, and seeing no real progress. One longtime volunteer told researchers, "I spent 10 years doing TNR, and there are more cats now than when I started. I wasted a decade of my life." Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every successful program requires 3 things: government leadership, sustained funding, and community buy-in. Miss anyone, and it fails. Most places have none of the 3. The American Veterinary Medical Association's position is telling. They support TNR in theory, but acknowledge it should not be used as a primary strategy for population control. Translation: it doesn't really work, but we can't say that publicly without getting destroyed by cat advocates. Cost-benefit analyses are damning. One study calculated that preventing the extinction of just one bird species costs less than managing feral cats for a single year in a major city. We're spending more money failing to manage cats than it would cost to actually solve the problem. International comparisons show what's possible. Rome's 30-year no-kill policy with systematic spay-neuter has stabilized populations, but it took 3 decades and millions of euros. Most cities want results in one election cycle with volunteer labor. It's fantasy. The legal frameworks are outdated everywhere. Most laws treat cats as either pets or wildlife, but feral cats are neither. They exist in a legal gray zone where nobody's responsible for them, but everybody's affected by them. Until we fix the legal status, we can't fix the problem. Here's what every scientist I've researched says. We need comprehensive, enforced, funded programs that combine multiple strategies. Mandatory spay-neuter for owned cats. Mandatory containment in sensitive areas. High-intensity TNR for existing ferals. Prohibition on feeding unowned cats. Education campaigns that actually tell the truth about impacts. But what we get instead is feel-good half measures that let politicians claim they are doing something, while the slaughter continues. We get volunteer programs instead of professional management. We get suggestions instead of regulations. We get dead wildlife while arguing about cat rights. One researcher summed it up perfectly. We have ethical solutions that work. We have scientific evidence. We have successful models to follow. What we lack is the courage to implement them. Every day we delay is another day of preventable extinction. The solutions exist. The science is clear. The only question is whether we'll choose to act before it's too late, or keep pretending that voluntary half measures will somehow fix an ecological catastrophe. Based on current trends, I think we all know which way this is going. Global approaches reveal cultural battlegrounds. If you want to see how insane the cat problem really is, just look at how different countries are handling it. Because what's happening globally is basically a world war between cat lovers and wildlife defenders, and the battlefields are our cities. Let's start with Australia, because they're not messing around. Australia has declared cats a nationally recognized pest. Think about that. At the federal level, cats are officially classified as invasive destroyers. They have a national threat abatement plan specifically for cats. They're literally treating cats like a biological invasion, because that's what it is. The Australian Capital Territory has the world's strictest cat laws, and they're incredible. Every cat must be contained 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No exceptions. Your cat goes outside without a leash or enclosure? That's a $1,600 fine. They require mandatory desexing by 3 months old. Not 6 months, not a year, 3 months. Miss the deadline? Another fine. And here's the kicker. It's working. Wildlife populations in Canberra suburbs are recovering. Native birds are returning. Small mammals are breeding again. They proved that strict laws plus actual enforcement equals wildlife recovery. It's not complicated. It just takes political spine. But then you look at Europe and it's a completely different universe. The EU has the Birds and Habitats directives that technically require member states to control threats to protected species. Cats are absolutely a threat. But most European countries just ignore it. They treat cats like they're part of the natural environment, even though cats have only been in Northern Europe for about 2,000 years. Rome is fascinating, though. They've had a no-kill policy for 30 years. Not because it's effective for wildlife, it's not, but because of cultural values. Romans consider cats part of their heritage. There's actually a law that says cats have the right to live where they were born. The right to live there. Wildlife doesn't have rights, but cats do. They've spent millions on TNR programs, and after 3 decades, they've achieved population stabilization, not reduction, stabilization, 30 years and millions of euros to keep the problem from getting worse. Meanwhile, Italian wildlife continues to decline, but at least the cats are happy, right? Now, India is where things get really complicated. They have 9.1 million stray cats in urban areas. But here's the thing. Buddhist and Jain religious principles mean killing any animal is basically unthinkable. Only 25.6% of people support lethal control, even when cats are destroying endangered species. But get this, 72% of Indians surveyed had never even heard of TNR. So they won't kill cats, but they also don't know about alternatives. The cats just exist, multiply, destroy. And everyone pretends it's fine because of religious beliefs that ironically are supposed to protect all life, while cats are annihilating all life around them. Japan has this weird middle ground. They have community cats that are technically owned by nobody but fed by everybody. Entire neighborhoods will collectively care for cats, but nobody takes actual responsibility. When researchers studied this, they found these community cats were decimating endemic species on Japanese islands, but stopping the feeding would be seen as cruel, so it continues. New Zealand is absolutely wild. They're trying to become predator-free by 2050. Ambitious, right? But when they tried to include cats in the predator-free plan, people went ballistic. There were literally protests. People wearing cat ears marching in the streets. The government backed down. So they're going predator-free. Except for the most destructive predator. One New Zealand town, Maui, tried to ban cats. Not kill them, just ban new ones and require existing ones to be neutered and microchipped. The international backlash was insane. Media from around the world portrayed them as cat-hating monsters. The plan failed. The native birds continue to die. In Islamic countries, cats have special status because Prophet Muhammad reportedly loved cats. In Turkey, there are an estimated 4 to 5 million stray cats in Istanbul alone. They're fed, sheltered, given medical care by the government. It's beautiful from a humanitarian perspective, devastating from an ecological one. Turkish wildlife pays the price for religious tradition. But here's where cultural differences get really dark. In Madagascar, one of the world's biodiversity hotspots, cats are driving endemic species extinct. But Madagascar is also one of the poorest countries on Earth. They can't afford cat management when people are starving. So unique species that exist nowhere else on Earth disappear, because poverty trumps conservation. China just released data showing their cats kill up to 5.5 billion birds annually, but there's almost no public discussion about it. Why? Because companion animal welfare is a relatively new concept in China. The idea of managing cats for wildlife protection doesn't even register. It's not hostility, it's complete indifference. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, they claim to have become the first country with no stray cats. Sounds amazing, right? But here's what they don't advertise. They achieved it through mandatory sterilization, mandatory microchipping, and heavy fines for abandonment. Basically, they did what Australia is doing, but with better PR, and it took them decades and massive government investment. The UK is particularly frustrating. They have some of the world's best wildlife conservation scientists, but cats are untouchable. The Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, the RSPB, officially states that cats aren't causing bird declines, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Why? Because they'd lose members and donations if they told the truth about cats. Canada splits the difference in the most Canadian way possible. Some provinces have strict bylaws, others have nothing. Calgary requires cat licensing and has bylaws about roaming cats. Toronto? Nothing. Vancouver? Voluntary compliance. It's a patchwork that means cats just move to wherever enforcement is weakest. Cultural attitudes determine everything. In a survey across 6 countries, researchers found that how people value cats versus wildlife is almost entirely cultural, not scientific. Americans were most likely to say both cats and birds matter equally. Australians were most likely to prioritize wildlife. Europeans were most likely to prioritize cats. The economic divide is stark. Wealthy countries spend millions on cat welfare while developing nations can't afford basic animal control. The result? Cats devastate biodiversity in poor countries while rich countries argue about the ethics of containment. It's ecological imperialism. We export our cat problem to places that can't handle it. Here's what's really messed up. Successful models exist everywhere, but nobody wants to copy them. The ACT in Australia proves strict laws work. Rome proves sustained investment in TNR can stabilize populations. The Netherlands proves you can eliminate strays entirely. But every country insists their situation is different and refuses to learn from others. International organizations are useless here. The UN Convention on Biological Diversity mentions invasive species, but won't touch cats specifically. Too controversial. The World Health Organization focuses on rabies control, but ignores ecological impacts. Everyone passes the buck. Some places are getting creative out of desperation. Hawaii is considering a cat tax on pet food to fund wildlife protection. Several Caribbean islands are offering bounties for feral cats threatening endemic species. The Galapagos is using trained dogs to hunt cats. These aren't solutions. They're last-ditch efforts to save what's left. The cultural battleground is shifting, though. Younger generations in surveys are more likely to support cat containment for environmental reasons. Climate change awareness is making people think about biodiversity. Social media is spreading awareness of cat impacts. But change is slow, and wildlife doesn't have time for cultural evolution. Here's a brutal reality. We're not really having a scientific debate about cats. We're having a cultural war where feelings trump facts, where tradition overrides evidence, where one person's pet is valued more than entire species. And while we argue, the 6th mass extinction accelerates. One international conservation biologist put it perfectly. We have a global problem requiring local solutions, but local cultures prevent global learning. Every country thinks they're different, special, unique. The cats don't care. They kill the same everywhere. Only our responses differ, and most of them fail. The pattern is clear. Countries that prioritize wildlife and implement strict enforced laws see recovery. Countries that prioritize cat welfare or cultural traditions see continued extinction. There's no middle ground that works. You either manage cats effectively or you lose biodiversity. Every country proves this, but none want to admit it. We're watching a real-time experiment in values versus extinction, and extinction is winning. The question isn't whether we can save wildlife from cats. Australia proves we can. The question is whether any culture besides Australia actually will. Indoor containment saves both cats and wildlife. Okay, here's something that should end every single debate about outdoor cats forever. Indoor cats live 13 to 17 years on average. Outdoor cats, 2 to 5 years. We're literally killing our cats with kindness by letting them roam. This isn't opinion. This is hard data from veterinary studies involving thousands of cats. Let me put that in perspective. Letting your cat outside cuts their life expectancy by 70 to 85%. That's like a human dying at 20 instead of 80. Would you take 60 years off your kid's life so they could have freedom? Because that's exactly what we're doing to cats. UC Davis just completed this massive study. They did necropsies, that's animal autopsies, on 3,108 cats. They found that indoor-only cats and indoor-outdoor cats that get supervised outdoor time live roughly the same length. But outdoor-only cats? Their lives are brutally short. We're not talking slightly shorter, we're talking catastrophically shorter. Here's what's killing outdoor cats, and it's not pretty. Number 1 killer? Cars. Trauma from vehicle strikes is the leading cause of death for outdoor cats, and it's not quick. Veterinarians report that most cats hit by cars don't die instantly. They crawl away and die slowly from internal injuries, sometimes taking days. That's the freedom we're giving them. Disease is the second biggest killer, and the statistics are horrifying. Feline leukemia. Outdoor cats are 60 times more likely to contract it. Feline immunodeficiency virus, basically cat AIDS, 30 times higher in outdoor cats. These aren't treatable diseases. They're death sentences that involve months of suffering. But here's what really got me. Only 25% of feral kittens survive to 6 months, 3 out of 4 dead before they're half a year old. They die from predation, coyotes, dogs, hawks. They die from disease. They die from starvation. They die from infections. They die from parasites. It's not a life, it's a short, brutal existence. Indoor cats? Their main health issues are age-related. Cancer causes 35% of deaths in indoor cats, but we're talking about cancer at age 15, not trauma at age 2. Kidney disease affects 63% of elderly indoor cats. These are diseases of old age, not preventable deaths in youth. The parasite load on outdoor cats is disgusting. 33.6% of feral cats carry Bartonella henselae, cat scratch disease. They carry roundworms, hookworms, tapeworms. One study found the average outdoor cat has 4 different parasitic infections at any given time. 4. Indoor cats? Near zero parasitic infections if they're kept inside from birth. Rabies is terrifying. Cats transmit rabies at 2.2 to 4.4 times the rate of dogs. Why? Because we vaccinate dogs religiously, but let cats roam unvaccinated. Over 6,000 Americans need post-exposure rabies treatment annually just from cat encounters. That treatment costs over $1,000 per person and involves multiple painful injections, all preventable by keeping cats inside. Here's something cat owners don't realize. Fight injuries. Outdoor cats are constantly fighting for territory. Abscesses from bite wounds are one of the most common reasons for emergency vet visits. These aren't minor scratches. They're deep puncture wounds that get infected. Treatment costs hundreds of dollars per incident, and some cats die from sepsis. The stress on outdoor cats is measurable. Cortisol levels, that's the stress hormone, are 3 times higher in outdoor cats than indoor cats. Chronic stress suppresses immune function, reduces lifespan, and affects quality of life. Those happy outdoor cats, they're actually in constant survival mode. Toxin exposure is everywhere outside. Antifreeze, tastes sweet to cats, causes kidney failure. Rat poison, cats eat poisoned rodents, die from internal bleeding. Lily pollen, gets on their fur, they groom it off, acute kidney failure. Pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, all deadly. Indoor cats? Zero exposure to any of these. Here's the quality of life comparison. Indoor cats sleep 15-20 hours a day in safety and comfort. Outdoor cats? They spend those hours hiding from threats, defending territory, searching for food, avoiding predators. Which sounds like a better life to you? The mental health benefits for indoor cats are huge. They bond more strongly with their humans. They're more affectionate, more social, less aggressive. Outdoor cats often become semi-feral even if they have homes, because survival instincts override domestication. Now let's talk about the enrichment argument. But cats need stimulation. You're right, they do. You know what provides stimulation? Cat trees, puzzle feeders, toy rotation, window perches, interactive play, catnip, cat grass, cardboard boxes, paper bags, laser pointers, feather wands. You know what else provides stimulation? Being hit by a car, getting attacked by a dog, dying from disease. Not all stimulation is good stimulation. The veterinary consensus is overwhelming. The American Veterinary Medical Association, the American Animal Hospital Association, the American Association of Feline Practitioners, they all recommend keeping cats indoors. Every major veterinary organization says the same thing. Indoor cats live longer, healthier, happier lives. Here's what really drives me crazy. People say, my cat wants to go outside. Your cat also wants to eat plastic, drink antifreeze, and fight raccoons. Cats aren't good at risk assessment. That's why we're supposed to be the responsible adults making safe choices for them. The financial argument is massive. Outdoor cats cost way more in veterinary care. Emergency visits for trauma, abscess treatment, disease management, parasite control, it adds up to thousands more over their shorter lifetime. Indoor cats? Annual checkup, vaccines, done. The money you save keeping cats inside could pay for every cat toy on Amazon. Lost cat statistics are heartbreaking. Only 2% of cats who enter shelters as strays are reunited with their owners. 2%. Even with microchips, most outdoor cats who disappear are never found. They die alone, unknown, unmourned. Indoor cats? They're always home. The suffering of outdoor cats is immense but hidden. We don't see them dying under bushes from infected wounds. We don't see them slowly starving when they're too injured to hunt. We don't see them freezing in winter storms or dying from heat stroke in summer. We just see them occasionally lounging in the sun and think they're living their best life. Here's a statistic that should haunt every outdoor cat owner. 79% of outdoor cats have painful dental disease that goes untreated because they hide symptoms as a survival mechanism. Indoor cats show pain behaviors that get them treatment. Outdoor cats suffer in silence until they die. The behavioral benefits of containment are immediate. Indoor cats don't spray as much because they're not defending territory. They don't bring parasites into your home. They don't wake you at 3 a.m. fighting. They don't disappear for days causing anxiety. They don't bring dead animals to your door. Environmental enrichment for indoor cats is easy and cheap. A catio, outdoor enclosure, gives them fresh air safely. Harness training lets them explore supervised. Cat TV, videos of birds and squirrels, provides visual stimulation. We have solutions that don't involve letting cats roam free to die young. Here's what convinced me personally. Rescue organizations won't adopt cats to people who let them outside. Think about that. The people who dedicate their lives to cat welfare, who see the consequences daily, universally agree that outdoor access is animal cruelty. They'd rather keep a cat in a shelter than let it go to an outdoor home. The science is unequivocal. Indoor cats live longer, healthier, happier lives. They die of old age instead of trauma. They avoid parasites, diseases, and predators. They bond better with humans. They cost less in veterinary care. They don't suffer alone and afraid. Every argument for outdoor cats falls apart under scrutiny. Natural behavior? Dying at age 3 isn't natural for a domestic animal. Mental health? Chronic stress from survival isn't good for mental health. Freedom? Freedom to suffer and die young isn't freedom worth having. The choice is simple. Keep your cat inside. They live 13-17 years, stay healthy, avoid suffering, and wildlife survives. Let them outside. They live 2 to 5 years, suffer from disease and trauma, and contribute to ecological collapse. There's no ethical argument for outdoor cats that stands up to the reality of their suffering and shortened lives. If you love your cat, if you love wildlife, if you have any compassion at all, the answer is obvious. Indoor cats win on every single metric that matters. The only thing outdoor cats have is human nostalgia for a false idea of freedom that's actually a death sentence. Keep your cats inside. They'll live longer, healthier, happier lives. Wildlife will survive. Everyone wins. It's literally the easiest conservation action you can take, and it saves your cat's life too. What are we even debating here? The path forward requires difficult choices. We need to have an honest conversation about what's actually at stake here. Our cities are becoming the last refuges for wildlife. Agricultural areas are toxic monocultures. Wild spaces are shrinking. Urban green spaces now support higher biodiversity than farmland. Cities are literally arks for species that can't survive anywhere else. And we're letting 480 million stray cats plus hundreds of millions of pets systematically dismantle these arks piece by piece. This isn't hyperbole. Recent studies show urban forests have become critical habitat for over 20% of endangered species in developed countries. These aren't just common pigeons and rats. We're talking about species on the brink, using cities as their last stand. And what are we doing? We're flooding these refuges with the most efficient predator in Earth's history. The 2023 research on the landscape of fear changed everything we thought we knew. It's not just about the killing anymore. Even when cats aren't hunting, their mere presence creates a 24-hour dead zone. Wildlife won't feed, won't mate, won't raise young. One cat walking through creates a day-long ecological shutdown. Multiply that by millions of cats and you understand why urban wildlife is collapsing. Here's what keeps scientists up at night. The cascade effects are accelerating. It's not linear decline, it's exponential collapse. When cats remove seed-dispersing birds, plants can't spread. When plants die, insects lose habitat. When insects disappear, other birds starve. When those birds die, rodent populations explode. It's ecological unraveling in real time. Climate change makes this 1,000 times worse. Wildlife stressed by heat waves, droughts, and habitat loss are more vulnerable to predation. They can't adapt to changing conditions while also dodging cats. We're asking species to evolve in response to climate change while under assault from an introduced super predator. It's biologically impossible. The evidence for solutions is overwhelming, but every option requires sacrifice. High-intensity TNR can work. The University of Central Florida proved it with 85% population reduction over 28 years. But it requires sterilizing 75% of cats annually, preventing abandonment, and sustained funding forever. Most programs achieve maybe 10% sterilization rates. We're playing pretend while ecosystems collapse. Containment works immediately. The Australian Capital Territory proved it. Wildlife recovery within 3 years of mandatory containment. But it requires enforcement, fines, and political will to stand up to cat owners who think their pet's freedom matters more than ecosystem survival. Most politicians would rather let species go extinct than anger cat voting constituents. Here's the brutal math. We can have free-roaming cats or urban biodiversity. Not both. Never both. Every study, every model, every real-world example proves this. The science is unequivocal. The choice is ours, and we're choosing cats over entire ecosystems. The hybrid approach some cities are trying is honestly just delusion with extra steps. Let's contain owned cats but TNR ferals. Okay, but ferals still hunt. Let's do TNR but also feed them. That maintains high populations. Let's educate people. Sure, but education without enforcement changes nothing. We're rearranging deck chairs on the ecological Titanic. What scientists actually recommend is comprehensive, multi-pronged enforced management. Mandatory spay, neuter for all owned cats, no exceptions. Mandatory containment in ecologically sensitive areas with real fines. High-intensity TNR for existing ferals, with sunset clauses for colony phase-out. Prohibition on feeding unowned cats, actually enforced. Public education that tells the truth about impacts, not feel-good propaganda. But here's what we get instead. Voluntary programs that achieve nothing. Suggestions instead of regulations. Underfunded TNR that barely scratches the surface. Politicians making speeches about humane solutions while species go extinct. We're watching ecological collapse and responding with press releases. The economic argument should end all debate. Cities spend billions creating and maintaining green infrastructure for biodiversity. Then we let cats destroy it for free. It's like building hospitals, then pumping them full of disease. The return on investment for urban conservation is negative as long as cats roam free. Every delay has consequences. While committees debate and stakeholders meet and politicians equivocate, approximately 6.5 million birds die daily in the US alone. That's 4,500 birds in the time it takes to watch this video. Every hour of delay is measurable in deaths. Every day of inaction is another step toward irreversible ecological collapse. The technological solutions exist. GPS fence collars that zap cats when they leave yards. Catio enclosures that give outdoor access without ecological access. Breed-specific legislation like we use for dangerous dogs. The tools are there. We just refuse to use them because cats have better lobbyists than wildlife. Here's what really frustrates scientists. This is the easiest environmental problem to solve. Climate change requires restructuring civilization. Habitat loss means stopping development. Pollution needs industrial transformation. But cats? Just keep them inside. That's it. The simplest solution to a massive problem, and we can't even do that. The generational divide is stark. Older people grew up when outdoor cats were normal and wildlife was abundant. They don't see the connection. Younger people are inheriting dead ecosystems and extinct species. Surveys show under 30s are 3 times more likely to support mandatory containment. But policy is made by the old, and wildlife doesn't have time for generational change. Indigenous communities that still connect with land are watching cats destroy culturally significant species. The Hawaiian crow, sacred to native Hawaiians, is extinct in the wild because of cats. Aboriginal Australians are seeing totemic species disappear. First Nations peoples watch traditional food sources vanish. Cultural genocide through ecological destruction, all for cat convenience. The moral framework is clear. We have a responsibility to prevent suffering we can prevent. Letting cats outside causes massive suffering, to wildlife being killed, to ecosystems being destroyed, to the cats themselves dying young. Keeping cats inside prevents all of it. The ethical choice is obvious. We just don't like it. International pressure is building. The UN Convention on Biological Diversity lists invasive species as a major threat. The IUCN Red List cites cats as a threat to hundreds of species. Scientific bodies worldwide call for action. But domestic politics trumps international science every time. Here's the choice in its starkest terms. We can act now with moderate measures, or wait for ecological collapse to force extreme measures. We can manage cats humanely today, or face the reality of mass culling tomorrow when ecosystems completely fail. We can choose difficult conversations now, or impossible choices later. The tipping point is approaching. Ecologists talk about ecological surprise, sudden irreversible shifts when ecosystems collapse. Urban ecosystems stressed by cats, climate change, and development are approaching these thresholds. Once crossed, recovery becomes impossible. We're not heading toward disaster, we're accelerating toward it. Public health crises from cat diseases will eventually force action. When toxoplasmosis in humans reaches crisis levels, when rabies outbreaks explode, when antibiotic-resistant bacteria from cats become untreatable, public health will override pet preferences. But by then, the ecological damage will be irreversible. The legal frameworks will change eventually. Lawsuits over extinct species, economic damages from ecosystem collapse, public health costs from cat diseases. Courts will force what politics won't. But litigation takes decades, and wildlife is dying now. Here's what individual action looks like. Keep your cats inside, support mandatory containment laws, stop feeding strays, donate to evidence-based conservation, vote for politicians who value ecosystems over pet lobby donations. Don't wait for perfect solutions. Act on good solutions now. The science is settled. Outdoor cats are incompatible with functional ecosystems. The evidence is overwhelming, documented in thousands of studies across every continent. The solutions are proven, tested, and available. The only variable is whether we'll act on facts or continue privileging feelings while watching ecological collapse. We're the first generation to fully understand this problem and the last generation that can solve it. The choice we make in the next decade determines whether urban wildlife exists for our grandchildren. We can be remembered as the generation that saved urban biodiversity or the one that chose cats over creation. The path forward requires admitting hard truths. Our love for cats is killing everything else. Our refusal to contain them is causing mass extinction. Our half measures are failing. Our delays are deadly. The difficult choice isn't really difficult at all. It's just unpopular. Keep cats inside, save wildlife. It really is that simple. The question isn't whether we can do it. Australia proves we can. The question is whether we will. And every day we don't is another day of preventable extinction, another step toward silent cities where only cats remain. The future depends on choices we make today. Choose wisely. Choose quickly. Choose life over convenience, ecosystems over emotions, difficult truths over comfortable lies. The path forward is clear. We just have to be brave enough to take it. Conclusion. So here we are. We've just walked through one of the most devastating ecological disasters happening right now, in every city, on every continent, every single day. Outdoor cats, both feral and owned, represent the most significant yet manageable threat to urban biodiversity on Earth. And I need you to understand, this isn't some distant problem. This is happening in your neighborhood right now as you watch this. Let's recap the carnage because these numbers deserve to be burned into our collective consciousness. 2.4 billion birds killed annually in the US alone, 12.3 billion mammals. Globally, we're talking about deaths in the tens of billions every single year. Cats have directly caused 63 documented extinctions, with hundreds more species teetering on the brink. This isn't predation, it's annihilation. But remember, the killing is just the visible horror. The invisible mechanisms are even worse. That landscape of fear that suppresses wildlife activity for 24 hours after a cat passes through, the trophic cascades collapsing entire food webs, the Toxoplasma parasite infecting 1/3 of humanity and causing 100% mortality in Hawaiian monk seals, the behavioral changes, the stress-induced breeding failures, the ecosystem-wide shutdowns. Our cities are investing billions in green infrastructure, creating urban forests, wetlands, and wildlife corridors. We're trying to build biodiversity refuges in an increasingly developed world. And then we're releasing hundreds of millions of the world's most efficient predators into these same spaces. It's ecological sabotage on an incomprehensible scale. The science couldn't be clearer. Every study, every dataset, every real-world example points to the same conclusion: outdoor cats and thriving ecosystems cannot coexist. This isn't opinion or debate anymore. It's documented, peer-reviewed, replicated fact. Arguing against it is like arguing the Earth is flat. You can do it, but you're wrong. What makes this especially infuriating is that solutions exist. This isn't climate change where we need to restructure civilization. This isn't habitat loss where we need to stop development. This is literally just keeping cats indoors or contained. The Australian Capital Territory proved it works. Wildlife recovers within 3 years of mandatory containment. It's the simplest solution to a massive problem. But we're choosing not to act. We're choosing cat convenience over ecosystem survival. We're choosing to let pet owners' feelings override scientific fact. We're choosing extinction over mild inconvenience. And every day we make this choice, another 6.5 million birds die in America alone. The arguments for outdoor cats have completely collapsed under scientific scrutiny. Natural behavior? Domestic cats hunting billions of animals with human support isn't natural. Mental stimulation? We can provide that safely indoors. Freedom? Freedom to die at age 3 instead of 17 isn't freedom worth defending. There's no legitimate argument left, just emotional attachment to a destructive tradition. Here's what we're really choosing between. We can have cities where birds sing, where small mammals thrive, where ecosystems function, where children can experience nature. Or we can have cities where cats roam free, where wildlife exists only in memory, where the only animals left are those we feed. These aren't compatible futures. Pick one. The generational theft happening here is unconscionable. We're stealing functioning ecosystems from our children to avoid difficult conversations about cats today. We're trading their biological heritage for our convenience. When they ask why the birds disappeared, why the urban forests are silent, what will we say? Sorry, but Fluffy really liked going outside. Time is running out. Ecosystem collapse isn't gradual, it's sudden. We're approaching tipping points where recovery becomes impossible. The cascading failures accelerate. The feedback loops amplify. One day the ecosystem functions, the next day it doesn't, and there's no going back. We're not approaching the cliff, we're sprinting toward it. The individual actions are crystal clear. Keep your cats inside. They'll live longer, healthier lives. Support mandatory containment laws in your community. Stop feeding stray cats. You're not helping, you're enabling ecological destruction. Support TNR programs only if they're high intensity with measurable outcomes. Vote for politicians who value biodiversity over pet lobby donations. But individual action isn't enough. We need systematic change. Mandatory spay-neuter laws with real enforcement. Containment requirements in ecologically sensitive areas. Prohibition on feeding unowned cats. Public education campaigns that tell the truth about impacts. Legal frameworks that recognize cats as the invasive species they are. The cost of inaction is accelerating. Every year we delay, more species cross the extinction threshold. More ecosystems collapse beyond recovery. More diseases spread from cats to wildlife and humans. The economic damage compounds. The ecological debt deepens. We're not maintaining the status quo. We're accelerating toward catastrophe. Here's what gives me hope. Australia did it. They looked at the science, made hard choices, and implemented real solutions. Their wildlife is recovering. It's proof that this is solvable if we have the courage to act. The blueprint exists. We just need the will to follow it. This is our generation's test. We're the first to fully understand this problem and the last who can solve it. We have the knowledge, the tools, and the examples of success. The only thing we lack is the courage to prioritize ecosystems over emotions, to choose difficult truths over comfortable lies. Imagine cities where urban forests actually support biodiversity, where wetlands teem with life instead of fear, where children can see real wildlife, not just the corpses cats leave behind, where billions of dollars in conservation investment actually conserve something. This future is still possible, but the window is closing. The absurdity of our current situation is almost unbearable. We're witnessing one of the greatest conservation crises of our time. We know exactly how to solve it. The solution is relatively simple and cheap, and we're just not doing it. Because cat people get angry, because politicians are cowards, because we value pet preferences over planetary health. I want you to remember this number. 1 cat kill every 3 seconds, somewhere in the world. While you've watched this video, thousands of animals have died. Tomorrow, 6.5 million more birds in America. This week, 45 million. This year, 2.4 billion. And next year, and the year after, until there's nothing left to kill. But I also want you to remember this. Every cat kept inside saves hundreds of animals per year. Every containment law passed recovers ecosystems. Every person who acts on this information moves us closer to solution. You're not powerless. You can be part of the solution or part of the problem. There's no neutral ground here. The verdict of science is unequivocal. Outdoor cats are an ecological disaster that's completely preventable. We're choosing to let it continue. We're choosing extinction over inconvenience, ecosystem collapse over cat containment, silent springs over simple solutions. This isn't just another environmental problem. This is a test of whether we can act on scientific evidence when it conflicts with cultural preferences, whether we can make difficult choices for necessary outcomes, whether we actually care about the natural world or just pretend to while we destroy it. The cats aren't evil. They're just being cats. We're the ones who created this problem by releasing an invasive predator and protecting it while it destroys native ecosystems. We're the ones who can solve it by keeping cats contained. The responsibility is entirely ours. So what's it going to be? Are we going to continue watching urban wildlife collapse while we debate and delay? Or are we going to act on overwhelming scientific evidence and save what's left? The choice is ours, but time isn't. Every day matters. Every decision counts. Every cat kept inside is a victory for biodiversity. The future of urban wildlife depends on choices we make right now. We'll be the generation that watched urban ecosystems collapse and did nothing. The generation that knew better but didn't do better. The generation that chose extinction. Be part of the solution. Because if we don't act now, if we continue choosing cats over creation, not next year, not next decade, now. Keep your cats inside. Support containment laws. Stop enabling destruction. The science is clear. The solutions exist. The only question left is, what are you going to do about it?